Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. This second day of October 2020. I'm Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first here, we've got the hazardous weather graphic and got some warning areas up now. The Alaska Range, high wind warning out until 1 p.m. Saturday afternoon, and that's for south to southeast winds will continue to increase with gusts to 60 miles an hour through tonight and again till 1 p.m. tomorrow when the warning should come down. Otherwise, farther to the west there, the northern Kuskokwim Valley, you're under the influence of a wind advisory for winds gusting 45 miles an hour to the south-southeast, and that's mostly over toward the Alaska Range, again up over the northeastern part of the Kuskokwim Valley. And also, the flood watch continues for Cooper Landing, or for the Kenai Lake and Kenai River at Cooper Landing through Monday morning now. Actually kicks into effect, or the watch period is from Saturday morning through Monday morning, and that's for potential flooding that could occur in the area due to the recent moderate to heavy rains that have fallen across the area there. And from that, no other watches, warnings, or advisories out for the next day. Around the state, Aleutians, southwest interior, northern interior, especially in the panhandle, nothing too significant to warrant a warning or a watch or an advisory. And a weakening front today moving into the southeast coast still brought a pretty good shot of rain up into the northern panhandle today, with Gustavus seeing about 1.2 inches in the last 24 hours, and Juneau just under an inch with 0.95 inches reported. And heavier rain, though, along the North Gulf Coast. For example, Portage picked up nearly 4 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. And by contrast, across the peninsula there, Soldotna just had 2/100ths of an inch of precipitation downsloping off the mountains there, dried it out. And, of course, the upsloping wrings the moisture out there on the eastern side. And otherwise, winds pretty gusty, up to 40 miles an hour this afternoon out of the south, both at Seward and Gulkana. And 40 miles an hour in the Kuskokwim Valley at Palmer, and also winds increasing along the Alaska Range with Delta Junction, for example, seeing gusts up to 35 miles an hour, and those will continue to increase tonight into the warning levels. But you can see the frontal boundary there pushing northward across the Brooks Range, north of Arctic Village now, and onto the north slope with clouds and some moisture there, and low pressure back to the southwest. That brought about rain diminishing, changing to showers at Kodiak, but they had over an inch in the last 24 hours. And winds gusted to 52 miles per hour, or 53 miles an hour, both at Bly Reef there in Prince William Sound and Augustine Island there, with the good south to north flow, keeping temperatures mild again up over the eastern interior and much of southern Alaska. Out in the Bering Sea, different story, light winds, and it looks like some clearing again from the Fox Islands, and clearing possible anywhere along the Aleutians there, but more clouds and breezy conditions and rain chances as you go north into the northern Bering Sea. You can see the clouds thicken up with a few breaks, though, coming off the Seward Peninsula, but nothing in the way of the heavy rain that we saw, say, along the northern Panhandle and North Gulf Coast during the last 24 hours. On the chart today, that low continues to pull northwestward, moving to about Togiak Bay this afternoon, or somewhere in the general vicinity there at 978 millibars. And that, again, the original front weakening there as it pushed into the Panhandle, and the most potent part of that trough now along the North Gulf Coast with the gusty winds and the heavier rain that I mentioned, and then the downsloping off the Alaska Range, keeping it dry there and mild with some clearing, and then scattered showers along the Brooks Range there, maybe the northwest interior along the coast down through the Bering Strait. You pick up more moisture in some areas of rain, fog, and drizzle there. A little breezy, but nothing too strong. And again, the Aleutians seeing some clearing, and the Arctic coast, not much in the way of any precipitation occurring. Could have been a few rain or snow showers, mixed precipitation there, and really nothing significant expected up that way for the next day or so or through the weekend. On tonight's forecast, that low continues to weaken slowly over the southwest interior and over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and the gradient's slowly going to slacken off here across south central Alaska, but then hold together enough to keep the wind warning in the Alaska Range through tomorrow afternoon. And that front continues to, or the trough continues to weaken, remnants of the front, And so showers will start to scatter out, if not end, along the southern panhandle, especially Prince of Wales Island, with possible clearing showing up along the coast toward morning. And rainfall will continue, but will be lighter on the eastern North Gulf Coast and northern panhandle. But it'll still be kind of moderate and heavy at times throughout much of the night for the eastern Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, southern Kenai Peninsula. And those winds remain gusty, but gradually diminishing as the gradient slackens off. Out in the Bering Sea, just northeast to southwest flow turns northwest over the Aleutians, and not too bad for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. Pretty much dry, kind of in the void there, with maybe some clearing as well. And then for Saturday, got another trough swing some more showers and clouds and maybe some fog into the Pribilof Islands, and eventually the central Aleutians, risk of showers along the Alaska Peninsula. And yet another trough keeps occasional rain and clouds in the North Gulf Coast, chance of showers across much of southern Alaska up into the central interior, and dry up to the northeast along the eastern border there, all the way out to the Arctic coast. Just a chance of rain or snow showers on the western Arctic coast down to, say, Kivalina, and stays showery over the panhandle, but drier to the south. And the next system there, you can see coming up 982 millibars, that on Sunday will push northeastward and bring gale force winds and rain, moderate to heavy, up to the North Gulf Coast once again. Another round of wind and rain pushing into the southeast coast, especially in the afternoon, with the brunt of the system probably reaching the area Sunday night. Otherwise, the interior, same pattern, but much lighter winds with less gradient there. It'll still be dry with some clearing. And some moisture might get into the southern Copper River Basin and might get as far westward as the Chugach Range. Again, downsloping won't be all that strong, but should be enough to keep it dry over northern Cook Inlet and the Manuska Valley, much of Cook Inlet as well. And maybe some rain and snow showers of the light variety up over the Brooks Range, maybe the Arctic coast, but nothing significant. And the Bering Sea, we've got higher pressure building and ridging over the western Aleutians, western Bering into western Canada. So that's resulted in northerly flow right out of the Arctic there across the Chukchi Sea coming southward, all the way down across St. Matthew Island, the Pribilofs to Atka and the Fox Islands area. And in that wind flow, there'll be areas of rain, fog, and drizzle from St. Lawrence Island all the way down to the eastern Aleutians, and a risk of showers for the Alaska Peninsula with light winds there. And the southwest interior, variably cloudy with a risk of a shower or two, and winds will also be light. Shower chances increase with that trough there along the Yukon Delta coast. Otherwise, not looking too bad there. And for the low temperatures for Saturday morning, again, pretty mild Arctic coast, near or above freezing there, especially on the west, central, and west side to near 40 near Cape Lisborne. Lower 40s, Kotzebue Sound, Selawik, and Ambler, as well as Shishmaref, and the Seward Peninsula generally in the lower 40s. Mid-40s there from the southwest coast, Makoryuk and Bethel, as well as St. Mary's in the Yukon Delta, and right up the river valleys there to lower 40s in the Tanana Valley. And then upper 30s, mid to upper 30s for Northway, Tok, and Eagle, and mid to upper 40s to near 50 for your lows, warmest over the southern southeast coast, and mid to upper 40s south central Alaska, Kodiak Island. Highs for Saturday afternoon, 55 to 60 for the southeast coast, and also 55 to 60, so cooling down a little bit there for the central and eastern interior, and lower 50s Copper River Basin, mid 50s south central Alaska, and the western interior, Kuskokwim Valley, up into Ambler, Galena, lower to mid 50s there. Lower 40s up in the Brooks Range, and probably the North Slope as well, with upper 30s for the Arctic coast, and 40s for the Seward Peninsula to near 50, and upper 40s for the Pribilofs, mid to upper 40s for the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And for Sunday morning, lows again having trouble getting down to the frost point there for the Arctic coast, but probably will drop to freezing or the upper 20s for the North Slope and especially the Brooks Range. Otherwise, 30s over the eastern central interior to near 40 as you head west and you're into the lower to mid 40s toward the southwest coast. Pribilofs, Aleutians, eastern Aleutians, mid 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, and upper 30s, a little cooler south central Alaska, mid 30s to lower 40s, call it from Copper River Basin into the Kuskokwim Valley, and mid to upper 40s for the southeast coast. That'll be followed by the highs Sunday afternoon. Again, a little cooler for the Panhandle, call it lower to mid 50s, lower to mid 50s also south central Alaska, near 50 the Copper River Basin, and mid 50s in the Tanana Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather, Saturday morning IFR, Arctic coast and a portion of the North Slope, and then some marginal VFR along the west coast there from the Northwest Valley, Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, and just about all of the southwest interior to Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, across Bristol Bay, central southern Bering Sea, marginal VFR, Gulf of Alaska into the Panhandle, marginal VFR. IFR, North Gulf Coast there, including the north shores of Prince William Sound. IFR from the Kilbrook Auckland Mountains down across Togiak Bay, Dillingham, and just north of the Pribilofs, just south of St. Matthew Island. Also IFR St. Lawrence Island through the Strait. And for the afternoon, that zone of IFR extending from the eastern Arctic coast there, all the way down across the northwest interior, western Seward Peninsula, northern Bering Sea. Not quite as extensive over the southwest interior there, but from the Yukon Delta areas, Nunivak Island, down to the Pribilofs, but north of the Aleutians. Otherwise, marginal VFR there for all of the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, most of Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island improving there on the east side, and IFR continues for the North Gulf Coast and extends into the Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area. Marginal VFR, northern three quarters of the southeast coast, Prince of Wales Island, and over toward Ketchikan, Metlakatla, look to be VFR, as well as the eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range. Really good conditions all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast, VFR. Then Sunday morning, eastern Arctic coast, or eastern Beaufort Sea coast goes marginal with VFR continuing eastern Brooks Range across the Yukon Flats, central interior, all the way down and even south of the Alaska Range in the Copper River Basin. Marginal VFR, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range into western Cook Inlet, IFR Kodiak, Fognak Island, Alaska Peninsula on the Pacific side, and IFR up in the Gulf of Alaska now into Prince William Sound. And marginal for the Panhandle, IFR, that zone out there now extends down to Adak, up to the Pribilofs, and along the southwest coast, Seward Peninsula, northwest interior. For the afternoon, marginal now for the Pribilofs, becoming VFR for the far western Aleutians, otherwise marginal for the Bering Sea, on up into Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. IFR Central Arctic Coast, IFR Kodiak Island there across, I'll say the Barrens and south of Kamishak Bay, into Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast. Most of the Panhandle IFR, marginal VFR, say from Sitka, Mount Edgecombe, Port Alexander on down to Craig and Klawock, Prince of Wales Island. And for passes Anatuvik tomorrow, marginal VFR, and optimistically I'll say VFR for Adigan throughout the day. Lake Clark and Merrill starting out IFR, becoming marginal during the morning into the afternoon. Rainy, marginal VFR becomes VFR, hopefully, afternoon hours. And windy, VFR. Another VFR day for Isabel and Mentasta coming up. Tanita, VFR, basically. Chance of marginal VFR would be eastern approach. And for Portage, IFR in the eastern entrance, otherwise marginal. For Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, still a decent gradient there across the Panhandle, 6 to 10,000 feet, not quite as tight as today's, I'm sorry. And otherwise, really slacks off. We got about 6,000 or 4 to 6,000 feet, central northern Bering with the warmest conditions over the eastern interior. And for icing, not quite as much, but still enough moisture coming in to produce areas of considerable moderate rime icing there, eastern North Gulf Coast, southern Kenai Peninsula, maybe along the Alaska Range. Otherwise, light to very isolated, moderate mixed icing there over the western interior and into that band of moisture from the northern Bering Sea down to the western Aleutians. Jet stream, big upper level trough complex really covering the Bering Sea and a couple of extensions of that into Kamishak Bay, another one there over Mackenzie Bay, and that's pushed the jet southward, keeping it well back to the west there out of the north, and then westerly 65 to 80 knots south of the Aleutians, and then it takes a turn to the north there as it approaches the west coast of Canada, and you got 110 knots blowing across the southern Panhandle. And at 9,000 feet, 40 to 50 knots southerly still, North Gulf Coast across the Copper River Basin, and turning southwest over the upper Tanana Valley area, 40 knots for the Panhandle, 35 out of the north for the western Aleutians, 3,000 feet, 40 out of the north for the western Aleutians, 35 knots for Cook Inlet, and lighter winds for the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, light to isolated moderate chop there from the Yukon Flats down into the Alaska Range, Susitna Valley, and maybe the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, Western Aleutians.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snyder, and joining me again is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. Thanks again for joining us, Cindy.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
Sure thing. And I love saying Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska's National Weather Service because that's not weather. Why is the Tsunami Program part of the National Weather Service?
Well, it's because the Weather Service absolutely rocks at warning people for every kind of, devastating natural hazard.
The mission of the Weather Service is to protect life and property. And so how does the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, which is a very unique office, again, within the Weather Service, it's not weather, how do those folks help us protect life and property?
The National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer is a national warning center, and we analyze seismic traces 24/7 all around the world. So when there's an earthquake anywhere on the planet, we see it and analyze it within minutes.
Within minutes, and
Within
there's
minutes.
actually a goal to have it under, was it 5 minutes?
If there is a tsunami warning to be issued for continental America, yeah, we must get that out, or shoot to get that out in 5 minutes.
Okay. Now that's not something I have ever learned to do, so I know it would be a struggle for me to do that under probably hours. But it is fascinating to watch, and the office is open on a regular basis for tours, right?
Absolutely. Come by Friday.
Okay.
Yep, every
Fridays.
Friday at 1, 2, and 3 p.m. and they're open public free tours. And it's the most interesting place on the planet. You really should check it out.
Okay, and the office team is made up of people that are earth scientists, not meteorologists or atmospheric scientists. Talk about some of the types of people that work there.
Right, we are out of place in our National Weather Service, but we are geologists, geophysicists, oceanographers. We even have an astrophysicist on board, computer software architects, electronic technicians that are brilliant and innovative. Our software is all written in-house. Our instrumentation is designed in-house. So it's a really, really unique place, and it's just a couple handfuls of people that work there. So
sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ways to get a tsunami alert message is on Twitter.
Right.
And I can follow the Twitter address, and we'll put that up on the screen for you there. But it's usually a very quick message that tells you initially what the magnitude of an earthquake could be and about where its epicenter was. What are some of the other ways that you can get that alert message?
Well, Twitter's my favorite too.
Yeah.
And you don't even need a Twitter account to receive
Right.
it. So
That's
it just comes in like an SMS message. But you can also receive it via email, weather radio, of course, the crawler on your television screen, on the internet, Google Alerts,
Right.
marine radio if you're out in harbors and boats. Actually, marine radio is probably,
Yeah, it is a good one.
that's our partnership with the Coast Guard. We're really grateful for that, absolutely. But there's a variety of ways in dissemination.
Okay.
And locally, excuse me, I'm sorry, but
Sure.
locally in the communities, the sirens will go off as
Right.
well.
Right. So lots of different ways to get that very important message very quickly when that matters to you. One of the ways that the Warning Center practices with communities is a test on a yearly basis, right?
Right.
How does that work?
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a controversial issue, but it's super important to help us warn better and really serve Alaskans. So the week of March 27th, the commemoration of the 1964 event, for that week we have a Tsunami Preparedness Week every year. We like communities to get out and do drills and practice and do everything we can to raise awareness. And part of that is a live code test where we actually issue the warning message live and we activate the emergency alert system, which means sirens go off, the TV crawler happens, and it's a test.
We're
and
doing everything that would normally happen without the real threat of the tsunami, just to practice as much as possible.
Right, and this is a major partnership with the State of Alaska, Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Emergency Operations Center, and the Alaska Broadcasters Association. Without the media, we wouldn't be able to do this. So the three groups really work tightly together to do our best to warn, educate the public that this is happening so they don't wonder and get scared about it. It has been remarkable what we've learned. I mean, it pretty much breaks somewhere every time, but then we fix it. and it gets better. So a quick example is just a few years ago, we used to, when we issued a message, it would activate the entire state.
Right.
Right? I mean, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, everybody would be in tsunami warning. And so now we can regionalize it to where the actual event is taking place.
Right.
That's pretty huge.
Right, right. So identifying points of failure and also points of success and making sure we continue down that successful path so that folks are warned as quickly and accurately as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, to get our communities involved to prep themselves, prep their businesses, prep their tourism, prep their schools, you know, just make this an annual thing they need to be doing.
Right. So as citizens wanting to be prepared, we should be prepared to learn more about that test that's happening usually toward the end of March every year.
Right, and you should be happy that it's happening.
Right.
Instead of upset. Definitely be happy that it's happening.
Right. Just as we test tornado sirens in tornado country, we also have to test the tsunami program as well.
Right, because there isn't enough time. You know, for a local tsunami, the wave will arrive in less than 2 minutes. So it's super important that people know what to do.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for helping us know more about the Tsunami Ready program and the test. And the Tsunami Warning Center is a very unique and very important job in the National Weather Service that is just fascinating to me every time I visit the office. So
It's the only one for the continent. You really should come check it out.
it's an international effort.
Yes.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Dave.
And thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snyder. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast there for the central and southern inside waters, variable winds, 10 knots with seas 3 to 5 feet, highest there for Clarence Strait. And for the Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay area, southerly winds at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. And, excuse me, the south coast there, southwest, 10 to 15 knots, not too bad, but those seas still up at 13 feet, and southerlies at 15 to 20 knots with 14-foot seas for the north coast. For Saturday, gale warnings come into the central and north coast. Central coast, south 35 knots, north coast, southeast, south to southeast 35 knots, seas holding 12 to 14 feet. 30 knot southerlies there along the coast of Prince of Wales Island, and seas 11 feet. Southeast 30 knots. All crowd advisories also for Clarence Strait, and 20 knot winds from the southeast for Stevens Passage. 15 knots for Lynn Canal from the south. Prince William Sound tomorrow. Southeast winds 15 knots, 3-foot seas. Southerly winds for the Middleton Island zone and the North Gulf Coast at 20 knots. Small craft advisories for the western North Gulf Coast and also for the Barren Islands, south to southeast winds at 25 there. South 25, Kamishak Bay. Southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, southeast winds at 25 knots and 20 knot southeast breezes for the northern Cook Inlet area. Then for Sunday, winds swing around to the north and come up to 25 knots for northern Cook Inlet and 30 knots south of the Forelands, Kamishak Bay, same pattern, north winds 30 knots, seas 8 feet. Gale warnings for the Barren Islands, northeast 35 knots, and also for the western North Gulf Coast, northeast at 35 knots, but a little stronger, east winds 40 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast there with seas at 13 feet. Prince William Sound, northeast 25, and seas at 6 feet. Kodiak Island, small craft advisory on the east side there with 12-foot seas and 25 knot southerly winds, 20 knots for Shelikof Strait, southwest 20 from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and then Sitkinak to Cape Sherichev. I know I butchered that one. South winds at 15 knots with 7-foot seas, and the north side of the Alaska Peninsula up across Bristol Bay, southwest 20 knots, 5 to 6-foot seas. And for Sunday, lighter winds there on the north side of the Berings or the Alaska Peninsula. The Bering Sea side of the peninsula, north winds 10 knots, northwest 15, Bristol Bay, and south side of the peninsula, westerlies at 20 knots. Small craft advisories for Kodiak Island with 30 knot winds out of the north and northwest. And for the eastern Aleutians, west, generally on average, west winds 10 to 15 knots, 4 to 6-foot seas. Adak and Atka, west-northwest at 20 with 7 to 6-foot seas. And then 20 knot winds from the northwest to Amchitka, 30 knot winds for the with tighter gradient there for Shumiatu and Kiska. And then on Sunday, southwest at 20 knots for the western Aleutians there. Amchitka Island, northwest 25. Small craft advisories also for the central Aleutians, northwest for Adak and Atka, 25 knots with seas 9 to 10 feet. And for Unmak Island, northwest 25, seas 10 to 11 feet. And Unalaska Island, westerlies at 20, 6 to 8 foot seas. Southwest coast there, south of Nunivak Island, southwest 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Real light winds for the Pribilof, south 10 or variable to 10 and seas 4 feet. Small craft advisory, St. Lawrence Island, St. Matthew Island, north winds 30 knots, 9-foot seas. Yukon Delta coast north at 20 and Norton Sound northeast 15. They'll swing around to the south at 15 with 3-foot seas for Norton Sound on Sunday. Northwest 25, small craft advisory, St. Lawrence Island and the Pribilofs, north winds there 25 knots with 8-foot seas. Yukon Delta coast and also St. Matthew Island, northern Bering Sea, northerlies at 20 knots, 7 to 8-foot seas. And south of Nunivak Island, west winds at 20 with only 3-foot seas. And kind of a variable wind pattern there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, but with a southerly component of 15 knots, 3 to 4-foot seas, east 15 for the central coast, west side north 15, and then Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales, small craft advisories, northerly winds 25 knots. And stays pretty brisk there from the area from Wales to Cape Thompson, 30-knot winds out of the north, Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, north 20, western Arctic coast, northwest 15, central coast, southwest 15, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, variable, 5 to 10 knots, 1 to 2-foot seas. For tonight, again, dry and winds increasing, high wind warning for the Alaska Range until 1 p.m. for gusts of 60 miles an hour out of the south-southeast. Wind advisory for the northern Kuskokwim Valley, gusts 45 miles per hour. Otherwise, continued windy and wet, but trending downward in both the intensity of the precipitation and the speed of the winds for the North Gulf Coast. And then for Saturday, the next storm gathering south of the Alaska Peninsula pushes gale force winds and rain back into the North Gulf Coast and Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.